January 14th, 2026. And today we're going to be answering 3 questions we've been hearing from international educators over the last 7 days. And as we do each week on the Roundup, we take our questions from our newsletter that comes out on Monday mornings called All the SMIE News Fit to Share. And in case you're wondering, SMIE stands for Social Media and International Education Consulting. And we've been doing these newsletters and live chats since about 2017 and have had well over 340 episodes now of the Roundup, as well as over 7.5, 8 years of newsletter content as well. So the newsletter is available in 2 different formats, and I'll be posting the link to both the website, the email version, and the LinkedIn version in the chat. So if you're catching this on repeat, just go to our Facebook or YouTube channels and you'll see the links to these listed in the chat on those platforms, as well as LinkedIn. So we do this newsletter to kind of give our hot takes on the news of the day that affects what we do in international education. And this has a combination of 4 main areas. Social media news, which can include everything from individual social media platforms and how those are being used inside on social media to reach international students. It can include webinars. It can include all sorts of topics on AI and digital reports, interesting blogs that I've seen pop up. So there's really a wide assortment of content that you'll find on both in that section of the newsletter. The newsletter itself, you'll find, I'm dropping the link to the subscribe page of our website, smieconsulting.org/subscribe. And on that page, you'll be able to download, you can either subscribe by if you want the email version, or if you prefer to get the newsletter in your LinkedIn feed each Monday morning, you can take that option as well. So the link, it'll take you to that LinkedIn page if you choose the LinkedIn version off the website. So both the email version and the LinkedIn version will be dropped in the chat here shortly as well. So with that, the social media section, you'll also have a section that's called the big picture issues, which will cover the kinds of topics that can be anything from new executive orders, new legislation that's being considered, new reports released that detail like the open doors or CVIS by the numbers. All sorts of that kind of content will be included in that big picture issues section. There's also a section entitled Solutions Central, which provides different takes on how in either institutions or positive ideas that maybe we can begin implementing on our campuses, kind of focus on those positives. We all need those every now and again, particularly these days after the year that we've just had. And the final section is a global roundup. And the global roundup is important because we take a look in that section as to what's happening in all the other major markets that are destinations for international students or hoping to become major destinations for international students. We cover that, and that's important because it's sometimes we all know, obviously in the United States, we've had a very tough year and a lot of negative news, a lot of government decisions that have been announced in the past 12 months that really leave us our heads spinning in terms of it feels like the sky's falling, like it's an existential threat to our profession. And what the Global Roundup section does, it takes you through what's happening in Australia, happening in Canada, China, UK, New Zealand, Vietnam, Korea, Taiwan, Japan, other major areas, Germany, other countries in Europe that are trying to become hubs for international students in the UAE and other countries. To give you an idea to let you know that, hey, other countries are struggling with similar issues. Maybe not exactly the same policy decisions, but certainly more restrictive government policies that are impacting their abilities to enroll students. So it's to let us all feel that, hey, we're not alone in this. There is not only within the United States, within our international ed community here, but globally, there are countries around the world that previously had been major destinations that are really struggling with new government policies that are making their jobs that much harder to do. So that's what the newsletter does each week. And between those two versions, the email and the LinkedIn version, we now have well over 2,800 subscribers. I'm so blessed that so many international educators in the US and abroad are making that resource an important part of their international edification each week. So thank you all for subscribing. And in case you aren't already, you can certainly do that through the links I provided in the chat. Now let's get right on to our first question of the day, and that is, how do you make social media work internationally on your campus? And we focused last week on an article that talked about the importance of using current students. And in my opinion, if you're not using your current students in any social media that you're trying to reach particularly prospective students around the world, that means you're doing it wrong or doing it poorly, because you're not taking advantage of your best asset, and that is your current students, because they are the only ones that can accurately portray for your future international students what it's really like to be a student on your campus now. They're living the dream that these future students need to see. And to see that, hey, someone like me who's studying my major, who's from my country, who speaks my language, is living that experience on that campus right now. And that means a lot, because they don't have the opportunity. And most international students, 99%, certainly of those outside the United States, don't visit a college campus unless they have brothers or sisters already there until they come for orientation. So when you don't provide the opportunities for your future students to interact with your current students, whether that's through actual takeovers of your social accounts for your international office, for having student workers in your office that handle kind of creating the content, to getting it out, or doing interviews, whatever it might be. And if you're not utilizing them, you're doing it wrong or doing it poorly. So how do you make your social media work international? We talked about that last week with the importance of using your current students to tell that story. But what we'll focus on this week are some examples of what specific tools you can be using to really make an impact in terms of not just content that you're putting out there, but which platforms, which media you're choosing to utilize as you reach students on platforms where they are. And that's one of the things we always talk about through SMIE. Certainly I talked about this since going back to my days on campus at Ball State University, where I really developed in the mid-noughties when social media was just taking off, and me realizing, even though I'm Gen X and I certainly was not the primary audience for social media in the US originally, it was college students on campuses in the US at Harvard and other colleges that started it. And Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, and that's where everything kind of evolved from there. But those platforms that used tools that attracted students to them, that had content that was meaningful, that allowed interaction between students on different campuses, on the same campus, whatever it might have been, those platforms are really what allowed them to really gel around online communication and really allowed those kind of platforms to take off, and where it became the norm for how they communicate. It's evolved in terms of, over the years, in terms of which platforms have become more popular. Some have gained and waned. Some have peaked and then fell off completely. Some have been bought out. Some have gone through peaks and troughs. But the point is, we've seen an evolution in the past 5 years or so of a transition from the one-to-many platforms of where you interact on Facebook or Twitter or X or YouTube or all the other major platforms to ones that are now very much one-to-one or one-to-small groups, where it's about the messaging apps that are also social media based. That's the Facebook Messenger, that's WhatsApp, that's Telegram, it's all the other ones that students use and people use around the world to communicate with each other one-to-one. And that's been probably the hardest transition for a lot of us on international recruitment teams to manage, is how do we really do that piece well, because we know they expect immediate responses, or certainly within 24 hours. That if they interact with you online, they have a much greater chance of engaging and converting into applicants, into enrolled students, all the way down the funnel. So the individual connections that you can make with students, prospective students on campus, through your current students, through your own individual messaging, through your current students' messaging, whatever it might be, faculty, or any alumni that get involved, all of those play important roles. Two particular articles I'll point out, one of which is from a good friend and colleague, Nicholas Chu at Synorbis out of Australia. They've originally started as a China-focused company, allowing Australian universities, British, U.S. universities entree into the Chinese market with locally hosted platforms, localized content, translated content, all of that. And they've evolved their strategy to become a much broader platform, particularly with their social media dashboard that allows messaging across multiple platforms that are important in prospective student lives, whether it be the individual ecosystem in China or WhatsApp, Zalo, Line, Telegram, other platforms that they're now incorporating into their social media management dashboard that allow you to get your messaging out directly, not just through the one-to-one, one-to-many platforms like you might do on WeChat, which is also a messaging platform, or Douyin, or others that you might use to one-to-many, like a TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. That knowing where your prospective students spend their time is so very important. So there's two pieces of that puzzle. Nicholas Chu talks about WhatsApp and why WhatsApp is so important, and he references that emails get a maximum of 20% open rate. We all complain that students aren't reading their emails. They need them for certain things, like accessing your online application portals, all of those kind of things. And getting their password resets, all of these things. You got to have an email. But the open rates are much lower than messaging apps, in particular WhatsApp. And Nico makes the point that WhatsApp has 90+% open rates or response rates to messaging that comes out, that gets sent. So if you are capturing, that might be part one of the problem. If you have to capture your prospective students' messaging app preferences, whether it's WhatsApp or any of the other many that are out there, but it's also making sure you're able to speak to them directly through either an office account or a business account that you might run. So that is, and if there are points in the funnel, and he makes the point in his post, if the middle of the funnel is where students decide, then WhatsApp should be the primary channel, because guidance only works when it's actually seen. Higher open rates mean higher conversions. He makes an excellent point there about WhatsApp. So definitely recommend you check that out. The other point that I alluded to is knowing what platforms your prospective students are on. And there's always great resources that come out, surveys that kind of chart the trends on where students are on these different things. The one most recent that popped in our newsletter this past week is from Keystone. Keystone released their 2026 social media trends report. You can download the PDF version of it using the link that I just dropped in the chat. If you haven't already from the newsletter, you'll be able to capture that. So it's a way to help you understand what platforms are in ascendance, what they're using as part of their evaluation tools for. Is it using TikTok as a search? We've talked about that in the past here on the Roundup, that students are increasingly going, instead of Google to do their college search, so you go to TikTok to do college searches. They're going to be turning increasingly, though not so much. We had a post this past week from the folks at Into that had done a study of about 1,100 of their recently placed students in the U.S. and the U.K. and their use of AI in their college search, where you can give your AI some prompts to, hey, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z things, then with these kind of criteria, what schools would be a good fit for me? And using an AI agent to do some of that initial search work. So that might be something that's coming, and how we make sure we're getting our content in front of the right that's correct out there, that's being pulled into AIs. AI responses. That's an important next step we all need to explore. But for now, for social media, in terms of search, where students are doing search at the beginning of the funnel, they're probably using TikTok as one of their main sources, except in India, where they can't use it in a few other countries. So knowing what platforms students are on in various countries is going to be important. And the Keystone Social Media Trends Report for 2026 will certainly give you some of that. So I definitely recommend making sure you download that and have that piece brought into your portfolio of tools you have, data you can look to and point to justify why you're making changes to what you're currently doing, give you the evidence you need to make sure that you're doing it right and your message is going out on the right platforms to students in the right countries. Now let's move on to our second question. And this is one that seems to be evolving week by week, sometimes day by day, in terms of how we can put together an effective recruitment plan. So what does an effective international recruitment plan look like in 2026? So there are a few articles that we'll be referencing for this one. And then first up is Inside Higher Ed. It says 2025 brought chaos for international students. In 2026, institutions hope to adapt. The article itself is more bringing up some of the key areas of concern in terms of topics that we think that we know are going to be hitting the headlines soon. We obviously at the end of 2025 we had the release of the updated travel ban countries. We know we now have 40 countries basically around the world where international students cannot get visas to come and study here from. If they're not already in the United States or already holding valid visas, they are out of luck until the policies change. And two of the countries that are on that list right now, Iran and Venezuela, both of which are undergoing some significant changes at the moment. Could there be a time in 6 months or in a year where Iran is off the travel ban list, where Venezuela is off the travel ban list? Perhaps. So what is true today is not going to always be true, but certainly as long as this administration's in place. They are, a colleague today was just commenting on another new decision that was just released last summer. We had the roughly month-long visa pause for visa appointments at embassies and consulates. It was just announced today that the Department of State is indefinitely pausing immigrant visa processing at consulates and embassies around the world. So that's a lot of us had our hearts in our throats this morning when we saw that headline, that it was like, oh gosh, 75 countries. You got Brazil on that list. You've got all the travel ban countries on the list, but you got China, you've got Thailand and a few other countries that are Nepal. I'm going to next week that were on that list, and I'm going, oh my gosh, is this for all visa processing, or is this just for immigrant processing? And it turns out it is that 75 indefinite pause on visa processing is just for immigrant visas, and that's confirmed from the Department of State X feed. So hearts can return to their center of their chests around the world in international ed circles here in the U.S. that it's just for immigrant visa processing is on pause for 75 countries around the world, which is basically half the world. So that is a little bit of a relief, but we know that with the travel ban countries, we now have a number of at least 4 or 5 in Africa, countries in Africa that have done reciprocal bans, that they're no longer accepting visas for Americans to come to their countries. So that's none that are really hot recruitment markets yet that have gone that road, but a number in Africa are smaller markets. I think Chad and a couple others that Niger are are no longer doing visas for U.S. folks to go visit there. So there are some ever evolving. Those travel bans that we experienced in 2025 that are still in place will be until those countries meet new requirements that the Trump administration has for information sharing, for the reason for the ban or the pause indefinitely for these 75 countries for immigrants is related to welfare fraud that is highlighted by what's been going on in Minnesota with the unfortunate cases of the Somalis who have committed fraud. No way to if ands or buts or no ways around saying it has been fraud. There's been massive fraud committed, and so as the Trump administration does, they're using that community as a whipping boy for what new policy is going to be. And the policy right now is until we can assure that immigrants coming from these countries, immigrants, not necessarily students, which were non-immigrants, from visa status purpose at least, for immigrant communities, there needs to be proof, and whatever that might look like to the administration's eyes, that there is not significant welfare fraud from different immigrant communities that are part of that 75 country list. So Somalia is obviously on that list. So there are some real issues going on here that have to be sorted, that it will impact. We can't recruit those countries anymore. Any of the 40 that are on that list, we can't actively recruit. We have a policy at Akron that if students apply and are admitted, meet all our other requirements, we will still issue an I-20, but we obviously let them know, they already know this themselves, that they can't get a visa currently, but will it still be that way in 6 months or 1 year? So at least they've gone through the process. We're not going to hinder their ability to at least get the I-20 that would eventually allow them to get at least an appointment, but we're not going to be the ones that say, sorry, we're not going to even let you apply because our country won't let you come even if you are admitted. So that's something that we're doing at Akron, but we're not actually, we can't recruit there. We're not actively going to spend money to go places to recruit that currently have travel bans. That's just not a wise investment of time, resources at this point, given how big the world is, how much we need to diversify our markets, and adopt policies that strategies that we never thought we would ever have to do in international admissions. And that one of those is, hey, where have the or trade deals been signed? Why we're going to Indonesia, why we're going to Vietnam this spring, why we're focusing in the Middle East, where we know students can get appointments for visas. Right now, our two biggest markets for applications are from outside of Africa, which are going to nosedive again this year, but we are from India and Nepal. Those are two countries that have had some visa issues recently because of various factors. Will some of that be improving with a potential trade deal with India in the next few months? Or in China, we're potentially going back to China, even though there are some implications for our institution with in terms of partnerships that we can establish and not establish, given our current circumstances. But there are some markets that we are looking at now that we wouldn't have thought of a few months ago or a year ago. So we're certainly keeping our eyes open to what an effective recruitment plan looks like. It needs to be flexible. It needs to be diversified in terms of where you go, why you go where you go. The other things that help guide us in terms of effective recruitment plan, in terms of not only the markets that we look at, are also going to be which of the academic programs that we need to be promoting in certain markets that kind of match academic program matches to country matches and needs in country. And then also, hey, what are the kind of needs that students express in those countries? Are they different? Are they going to be, is a one-size-fits-all recruitment policy and recruitment comp plan does that still work in 2026? No. You need to be localizing your messaging in terms of country level marketing, in terms of messaging on key topics that are important in certain markets. If you are looking at India, you can't not talk about OPT, STEM OPT, and H-1B, and and career services. And we already know how important outcomes have become for prospective students, and why students post-COVID have been looking at a much broader range of countries as to where they might go. So we're certainly seeing that effective strategies really need to have a lot of flexibility, a lot of diversified markets and opportunities that really meet students where they are in terms of messaging, in terms of platforms, all the things we've been talking about. One of those resources is ISEF's Agent Voice Survey that draws from more than 1,200 agents across 113 countries. And that agent survey for 2026 highlights that affordability, visa processes, and employment opportunities will continue to guide student decision-making processes. So that's from the ISEF Monitor report and from their Agent Voice program, Agent Voice survey, their annual survey. One other interesting LinkedIn article I've recently picked up on from Uni Newsletter. It's called the Global. This article is called "The Global Recruitment Strategy Universities Are Getting Wrong." So this one is particularly interesting, and it touches on a lot of what we just mentioned in terms of the need to have diversified markets, to have at the end of the one-size-fits-all era, to providing students with what they really want to know in different. It'll be different in different countries. Having the content that speaks directly to the individual student's context, educational context, references to their curriculum and exams and pathways, so that what you're sending out in your messaging or what you have available online acknowledges their country, their education system, have timelines that are aligning to their academic calendars, and have it in their language, information in their language. The more localized you can make your content, the more regional your strategies are in terms of meeting them where they are, the better you will have, better opportunities you will have to attract their interest and hopefully convert them. So very good article from Uni Newsletters. So the last question of the day is, do we understand the importance of the Indian market? It may seem like a silly question. One would think that certainly any university that has recruited internationally, certainly at the graduate level over the last 10 to 20 years, knows that you don't have a new incoming graduate class of international students without a sizable chunk of Indians in there. They have some of the most price-sensitive markets in the world are in South Asia. India certainly near the top of that list, and also the most focus on post-study work opportunities. And those, whether in the U.S., that's our CPT, OPT, STEM OPT, those are the ones that they'll focus on most significantly, but also the longer term impacts on H-1B. We've talked about the proposed or the now adopted changes to H-1B, some of which are still being challenged in the courts, particularly the $100,000 payment for non-in-country students who would be going to H-1B from OPT. You have some challenges there, but they pay attention to these things and having content that meets them where they are. But for India specifically, if you don't have relevant content on post-study work opportunities, not only what they are, but hopefully data to back up their success rates, potential starting salaries for recent Indian graduates, or at least anecdotal stories you can share of 4 or 5 Indian students and where they've gotten jobs, what their salaries have been, or potentially ranges perhaps. Just having that kind of content is now non-negotiable. You got to have it if you want to be successful longer term in the Indian market. And part of that success right now is visa support and helping them in that visa admissions process. We have 2 things that we do at Akron, one of which is we have work with a visa consulting firm made up of former visa officers who are now they do free group sessions for our students. Once they receive their I-20, they can attend these free sessions to ask any questions that they'd like about what the visa interview looks like. We've had some of a lot of questions in this past intake, summer and spring intake, were about the social media vetting process and what that looks like, and what strategies are for how to in terms of making profiles public and all of that. So they also do one-on-one sessions as well. now the major recruitment firm that we're working with in Uni is now truly our global partner for not only international student recruitment, but also partnership development and T&E and all of these other things that we're really looking at. And what they also provide a service called Argo, similar visa service that they provide their students to the agencies that they're working with around the world. So visa support, post-study work opportunities, the data that backs up why your students are successful in where they go. That is really for the Indian market. It helps you understand better what's really going on. Now, last article I'll share is out of Track in India, and it's a new study that we referenced last week that by 2030, 8.5 million international students will be studying outside their home countries. Talks about what the implications are for the different countries that are trying to enroll them, and highlights what they're going to be looking for in terms of the global job market demand, the economic benefits, what students do for their countries. But what they also point out in this is challenges and policy consideration. What those challenges are: visa and immigration rules, cost of living and tuition, and post-study work opportunities as the most important things from that Indian market that we need to be aware of. So certainly some really, really important things that we need to have front and center in our minds as we approach the largest single student market in the world, and how to regain a foothold there. It's a constantly evolving market. I was just there in September. I'll be going back there sometime this spring, hopefully, and it's going to be a different world there in terms of the questions that they might be asking, in terms of their what academic programs they might be going into. So we always need to be on top of these things, and as we do through our newsletter, through these roundups, we try and give you our what's new on the ground. I'll be in Nepal next week, and when I get back, I'll do a part of the roundup on that to let you know what's happening in country there. Obviously, a major market for undergraduate, but even now a graduate market for some U.S. colleges. So that's all I have for you this week here on the Roundup. If you're not already, subscribed to the various ways you can through either the audio-only podcast. You can get that on all your favorite podcast providers, or getting subscribed to our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn feed, or our Facebook page. So looking forward to chatting with you again when I return from